This is a rusty, dirty, 1900 and something Chevy Suburban that's anything but showroom. Unless your showroom is a salvage yard. And my guest today has no idea that this is the car we'll be driving. You see, it's his car. My guest, John Cuddeback. Dr. Cuddeback has a BA from Christendom and a doctorate in philosophy from Catholic U. We went to Christendom together in the 1980s, although he probably doesn't remember me much from class. Few people do. In addition to teaching philosophy classes, John has a blog called Bacon from Acorns. I don't know what that means, but it sounds like a pretty good trade-off. So maybe we can get some answers to that question and plenty of others on this episode of Professors on Break. Hello.
Hey, John.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Good to see you. What you working on?
Well, getting ready for class. How do you like my office?
It's great. I hadn't seen this new building until just now. This is nice.
I think I've got kind of the pick of the place, don't you think? So you want to have a seat, or?
Sure, yeah.
Treat you like a student. How about that?
No, that's
if it's a
perfect.
big problem, take the couch. A minor problem, have the chair.
I don't know if you even remember, but you were a senior. I was a freshman. Do you remember going to, I don't know.
I do remember our overlap. Yeah.
You were with the smart students, and so I don't want to draw a contrast, but we'll just leave it like that. You
Yeah,
met with the
we're not
smart
going to use an
students more.
adjective for the group you were hanging out with. We'll just say
Yeah,
you
there
were-
was an adjective we could use, but we'll go. You were with the smart students. We'll leave it at that. You know, we're charitable. Well, let's grab some coffee.
Let's go.
We good?
That sounds great. Thank you.
So this is the famous quad.
This is the famous quad.
Now, where was your office when you said you moved? Where was your office before you moved in here?
Well, before I got promoted, I was down in this corner.
Okay.
Now, I was there for about 15 years. But
Wow.
the funny thing is, all 4 years of my being a student, I was in that corner.
Oh, nice.
So I have memories of all kinds in this crazy place. If you absolutely insist, we can take my car. No promises.
I like it. Nothing says Catholic vehicle more than this very vehicle.
That rust. And I have to admit, I have to, in all honesty, I have at times prayed, Lord, if it's not a problem for anybody else, do you mind if I just get hit by somebody and have it be that person's fault, not injure anybody, and then I could just, collect a little bit of insurance money.
Well, this is the Plato's cave of vehicles. I like it.
Well, it is.
I like it.
Do you want to step into the
I
cave?
do, absolutely.
I'm not sure what's going to happen when I open it.
How many philosophy majors do you have at any given time? Because it's 2 years, so it's juniors and seniors.
Around between 50 and 60.
Okay.
So it's between 25 and 30 in a given year. And given that one class tends to be about 100 people,
Okay.
it's actually a pretty big chunk
Right.
of the class that's philosophy majors. The philosophy major has been either the biggest major or the second biggest major for a good number of years running.
Really? Oh, that's good.
You asked earlier about is there competition. As I mentioned, it's of course we love having students in the major. We love having students in our classes.
Sure.
But there does come a point where things can get a little bit crowded. So, if someone says, "Well, actually, I'm not going to major in philosophy after all," I say, "Well, hey, that's okay. That's all right.
Right.
Take a couple of our classes anyway, because that's the thing. I really encourage people to spread it around. Don't focus too much." And my students in the major, I say to them, "Don't take more in the major than you need to. You need to be taking these literature classes. You need to be taking the history classes."
Because that's the idea. I mean, Christendom is about being well-rounded in the liberal arts. Even though we have a major, you might be able to understand a point of philosophy better. I think that's kind of what you're saying, is that if you were to read Dante, maybe you understand a point of philosophy better than you would without reading Dante, right? Is that
right?
kind
Yeah,
of
no, that's absolutely.
People talk about, I wish I'd gone to college when I was 40, because now I would, get more out of it.
Right.
So
true. And actually, every now and then when we have an older student, it's really great. And I think the younger ones benefit from seeing that. Sometimes it's someone who's come out of the military.
Okay.
And you just see the student has this real seriousness, and it puts things into a little different perspective for the younger student.
I think the thing that makes Christendom sort of interesting in their whole approach is that I think a lot of people think, well, I could just read. I mean, I could look at the list of the readings for every class theoretically, right? The difficulty is that you don't really have the guided tour that you need, but mostly you don't know what you don't know.
Right. No, that's a great point, John. I mean, Socrates repeats this major theme of his, that the more you pursue wisdom, at the heart of it is coming to see what you don't know.
Right.
The greatest blindness is a blindness to your blindness. You don't know that there are these questions there that need an answer.
Okay.
So one of the biggest things that this course of studies does is it raises in your minds the right questions.
I want to ask you, who's the funniest philosopher? Is there a funny philosopher? They seem at times kind of serious, right? Is that fair to say?
Well, okay. It is. Although most of the philosophers I know, in the sense of those studying philosophy, tend to have a decent sense of humor. I think you need a sense of humor to make it through, because it's so intense.
Well, the reverse is kind of true too, right? So they say that to be really funny, you need to be kind of a deep thinker, right?
That's a good point.
Maybe it's a hand in hand.
That's a good point. Philosophers can tell good jokes.
One question I've always wondered is how does someone become appointed as a philosopher? So you look at the 20th, I get the
anointed.
Well, right. In other words, I'm not known far and wide as a philosopher, but Bertrand Russell was, right? Nietzsche was known as a philosopher, right? So what were the things they were doing that someone said, yes, that is a philosopher?
Well, as I annoy my students by saying, there's philosophy, and then there's philosophy.
Okay.
So a lot of these men, in any case, were doing enough. I don't want to sell them short to be called philosophers. Let's put it this way. They were asking serious questions about the big picture.
Okay.
And so I'd say, in general, that's what's going to get you categorized as a philosopher. Nietzsche,
if the
for
questions
sure.
not necessarily the answers. It's the questions you're asking.
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
Yes. You're not setting about solving some particular concrete problem of politics or science. I mean, Nietzsche is asking about the meaning of human existence.
Okay.
And Nietzsche is a profound soul.
Okay.
I have to admit, I feel a certain connection with Nietzsche. He felt things so deeply. You can tell he suffered much. He was a man that was desperate, I'd say, for meaning.
And sometimes that leads to philosophy, right? The suffering.
Oh, for sure. Yes. Okay. No, good
Maybe
point.
makes you a philosopher even if you don't want to be. Right?
Well, true. And it's interesting. Some people are more naturally disposed to this. And anyone can, to some real extent, do philosophy.
Okay.
And we can come back to that. But I would say there are people that are more naturally disposed. You know, every now and then you come upon an undergrad who's sitting on a bench, and you can just tell it's in the body, it's in the demeanor. You know, a serious question is weighing upon him.
So I was probably the opposite of that. So, but that's good to know. You have a blog, which I really enjoy, and it's out. You come out it's about once a week, right?
It is exactly once a week.
Okay,
every Wednesday. So it's called Bacon from Acorns.
Okay.
.com.
Excellent.
And I wanted to take some of the basic points that I have so much enjoyed teaching, put it in kind of bite-sized pieces, and deliver it to a wider audience that would be interested.
Okay,
I just decided right from the start I'd do it every Wednesday, so I call it my Wednesday quote.
Okay,
it's almost always a great philosopher. Sometimes it'll be something from great literature, but in general, it's going to the great philosophers. And just facing the challenges of today. What do the wise of the past have to share with us that can make such a difference for how we live today?
Yeah. So I mean, so it's sort of a what would Aristotle do?
It is honestly. It is kind of that.
One of the things I've really noticed, I mean, you write about fatherhood. I don't know if that's all of them, but it's a major theme.
It is a big theme for me.
How does becoming a philosopher how does that influence your being a father?
To be a father is always to be a teacher. What's the main way that we form children? The main way we form them is by teaching in various ways.
That's true.
So, to the extent that philosophy gives an opportunity to come to greater insights into reality and the most important questions, it directly, deeply affects being a father. But I would note, though, here's the interesting thing. The greatest philosophers probably didn't spend as much time on their families as their families might have needed. Or,
interesting.
Interesting in the history of the church, the greatest philosophers would have been religious. And I actually think that's fitting.
That's
St. Thomas Aquinas, right? He is able to completely devote himself to the contemplative life, right? In the family, to be parents is to live the active life. And so I have to say, at times, every day at times, that being a father is going to hinder my being able to go as deeply into the pursuit of wisdom as I might have. That's not a problem, but it's something I have to learn to live with. And I at times have to remind myself, being a father actually comes first.
Well, I think that it's interesting you say that, because when I read your blog, I almost feel like rather than philosophy influencing your fatherhood, as a reader, I actually think it's a little bit reversed. I think it is the fact that you're a father raising 6 children, right?
Yeah.
A father raising children seems to influence your philosophy over time, and maybe things stand out. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense. I appreciate you putting it that way. I will say, it gives another avenue of insight into the challenges and meaning of life.
Well, that's good.